Good morning all. My apologies for a croaky voice, which I do not blame on Thailand. I brought it with me. I want to acknowledge a number of key people at the beginning and then continue. You all know that Dr. Wanchai is not able to be with us here this morning. He's the former president. He was the founder of the Mekong Institute, of course, and the former president of Kon Kin University. Mr. Tundun Nai is here, chair of the Mekong Institute Council. Dr. Narang Chai, chair of the Mekong Institute Steering Committee. Dr. Kitty Chai, president of the Kon Kin University. Mr. Paisan, deputy director general, Thailand International Cooperation Agency. I want to acknowledge my colleague, Ambassador Ben King from New Zealand. I want to acknowledge the other distinguished representatives of other governments who are here also because they want to help and contribute. I also, of course, acknowledge the many, many distinguished guests that are here this morning. It's really great to be back here. When you look behind me, you see the title, Sharing Responsibility for a Common Prosperity. Sharing Responsibility for a Common Prosperity. That philosophy, captured in that title, has been the driving philosophy of the Mekong Institute from the beginning until now, its 20th anniversary. And I hope during the course of this forum, we will add to that concept and drive it further forward, because what we're talking about really has world implications. How do we share the responsibility to create prosperity across the world? You can't do it alone, no one country, no one institute. So that's what I hope will be the end product of this forum. I want to say 2016, of course, is a very important year in the New Zealand-Thai relationship because it marks 60 years since formal diplomatic relations were established between Thailand and New Zealand. And I don't know what the leaders thought back then would be the end product, but I'd have to say this forum and this involvement by New Zealand in Kon Kin University has, I think, been an enormous benefit to both parties. 60 years, the governments and people of New Zealand and Thailand have worked closely together to build a strong, resilient relationship, one that can take the knocks of normal existence. It spans almost every sector of economic and social activity. This, I might say, is reflected in the strong links which New Zealand has built here in Kon Kin, the unofficial capital of Islam, and for over 50 years we've been here. The New Zealand government made wisely, and I wasn't responsible, wisely significant investments in the construction of some of the key faculty buildings at Kon Kin University when it was established those 50 years back, including buildings for the agriculture and medical faculties. Over the years, Kon Kin University has built strong links with some of New Zealand's world-class universities, and that helps to facilitate the exchange of knowledge and experience and understanding of each other. And I am delighted to hear that more recently, Kon Kin University has been in discussion with New Zealand universities on the possibility of delivering joint master's degrees. I have to say, my university would be interested in looking at that too. I also have strong personal connection with Kon Kin University dating back 20 years, as has been noted. In 1994, as New Zealand's Prime Minister, I visited here and was very honoured to receive an honorary doctorate from the university. So I'm an alumni of the university. Therefore, as someone said last night, I have to support it. New Zealand has also had long-standing significant relationship with Kon Kin through our support for the Mekong Institute and our joint support for the development of the Greater Mekong Subregion, or GMS, which I think is a fascinating concept, bold and visionary when it was started, that you get not one country involved, not 2, 3, 4, get them involved working together across borders. Think of the problem the world has with borders. And here we have an institute that works across borders, works with different people, different histories. That's what I think is important. So we're talking about the 20 years of the working partnership, 20 years that has seen growth and achievement for the Institute. We heard a little of it. From a New Zealand perspective, we have gained hugely, and I want to make that point, we have gained hugely from working with our friends from the Thai government and the Konkan University and support the development of the Mekong Institute. We did this through securing status as a Thai foundation, the signing of the Mekong Charter. The Institute then transitioned into a fully intergovernmental organisation supported by the GMS governments, Cambodia, China, Laos PDR, Myanmar, Vietnam, and of course the host country, Thailand. We have, as a government and as a people in New Zealand, been pleased to have been with you from the start. And as Prime Minister at the time, I was happy, very happy to be involved in the establishment with New Zealand support. Happy to be part of that vision, because those who take big steps and have big goals can fail or become timid. And what the Institute hasn't done is either of those. It has succeeded and it is bold. It's been particularly encouraging to see the Mekong Institute grow by adapting its programs and delivery mechanisms to the changing needs of this dynamic region. The Institute has also taken a lead in bringing together practitioners, senior policymakers, business and civic leaders and academics who are all involved in promoting development in the GMS. The dialogue that occurs as a result of the Institute's work enhances effective development cooperation as a means to achieve development targets, reduce poverty and inequality, generate inclusive growth, which is hugely important, and improve capacity development. Also, and in this world we talk about a lot, to deliver on sustainable development goals. Gone are the days when you could ignore sustainability. Gone are the days when you can ignore climate change. So they have to be sustainable goals. And this is what's been attempted and delivered here. So I congratulate on the great progress. Hello? No, it's back. I wouldn't like to try it with my voice without it. Continuing this journey, we are here to discuss our shared interests in the ongoing prosperity of the GMS countries, as I said. This shared interest requires us to reflect on and consider what the emerging international development challenges are globally and, of course, particular to this region. There is some uncertainty in the international context right now. Just think of one or two big ones. The United States is in the middle of an election campaign, and some radical and some see disturbing claims are being made. The Brexit vote means the future direction of the EU, the largest economic group, largest economic gathering of nations, has yet to be established. What follows next when Great Britain leaves? It is too early to know how events such as these will play out and the impact they will have on our part of the world and on the global economy. Wars and challenges to international security have resulted, we all know this, in record numbers of refugees seeking asylum, seeking some place to call home. And this has brought increased pressure on a number of countries. Some have responded magnificently, others, I'd have to say, less so. It has also brought about a deeper degree of international surveillance and, sadly, a rising level of stress and division within countries. And more broadly, the number and impact of natural disasters globally is increasing, and developing countries, unfortunately, appear to be disproportionately affected. But that takes nothing away from the enormous tragedy that happened in Italy just a few days ago with that huge earthquake. And New Zealand being on an earthquake-prone part of the world, we are very aware of the damage and destruction and death that earthquakes can cause. We've had our own tragedies in that space. So the situation is challenging with acceleration in global climate change. There's growth in the world's population. I might add, which nobody seems to take much notice of, that the growth in animal population is twice that of human population. They also require resources. And there's nothing that seems to figure in some of the global statistics that people talk about that there are more and more animals as well. So it is pleasing that the OECD reports funding from the OECD member countries is in the vicinity of US 130 billion, and a survey of donor spending plans suggests the flows to the poorest countries keep rising. That's as it should be. That's what's necessary for a better world. Collectively, we need to use our development funding more wisely, being cognizant that there are many competing demands. We know that. Our collective responsibility in the GMS is, as a developing ecosystem, to develop strategies around shared prosperity, which is the title of the forum, which take into account developing countries' national needs, but also those which benefit the GMS regionally. So it's a two-pronged approach. Yes, individual countries have goals, but we're talking about the regional goals, the GMS goals, which are hugely important. At this juncture, I would like to draw on New Zealand's approach to illustrate how we understand our responsibilities as a donor, a regional partner, and a friend of the GMS. Our New Zealand experience has been that bigger, fewer, deeper, longer focus within our modest aid budget relative to other donors, much larger donors, allows us to maintain our development support through times of change. In other words, not just to come in and leave, paint the walls, as it were, and leave. Do something that is sustainable, stay the journey, help along the way, because we believe that brings a better and more beneficial result. We are therefore narrowing and deepening our focus so that we can ensure our cooperation has maximum impact. To this end, New Zealand has increased its overall investment in ASEAN. To support the New Zealand-ASEAN Strategic Partnership, Prime Minister John Key announced in November last year, 2015, New Zealand will invest over 200 million in ASEAN over the next 3 years. Over 50% of this support will be spent in the Mekong sub-region, because we recognise the need there. The focus of cooperation will be to build people-to-people links and improve the prosperity of ASEAN and New Zealand. This represents an increase of over 30%, with the majority of the funding coming from New Zealand's aid program. The purpose of New Zealand's aid is to develop shared prosperity and stability in our region and beyond, drawing on the best of New Zealand's expertise. While 60% of our aid is focused on our closest neighbours in the Pacific, the small Pacific Island nation countries, our support to ASEAN is our second largest regional development relationship. Our aid to ASEAN supports our strategic partnerships through knowledge and skills, through agriculture, disaster risk management, which I talk about, or the DRM and renewable energy initiatives. And of course, renewable energy has come a long way up on the focus of what countries have to address as we look out. I think most thinking people know we cannot continue to burn oil and coal forever, so what do we do? We can. Science has produced many answers. It's a matter of how you get from where we are to where we need to be. Country partnerships are at the heart of our aid approach, and the majority of our aid is delivered to individual countries. But in the ASEAN context, New Zealand will deliver development assistance through a mix of regional, multi-country, and country-level initiatives. We will structure projects based on an understanding of individual country priorities, a clear sense of where New Zealand can add value, and a shared understanding of the results we want to achieve. To support ASEAN's initiative for ASEAN integration, we have increased our overseas development aid focus on ASEAN's least developed members, particularly Cambodia, Laos, and Myanmar. As ASEAN develops, as it will, over the coming years, we expect to see our development engagement transitioning to a broader partnership, reflecting the international principle that pure aid support will decrease as countries' economies improve, and that we will increasingly share responsibility for our common prosperity. Education, of course, we're here talking about education. The university here has played a significant role in New Zealand's development and engagement with the countries of Asia. That goes back a long time. Some who are old enough, probably not many here, will recall the Colombo Plan we instituted at the end of World War II. So many future leaders throughout Asia, our part of Asia, were educated under that program. We have a world-class education system, I'm proud to say. We welcome thousands of students every year to study in secondary and tertiary schools and our universities. And as Chancellor of the University of Waikato, I can say from first-hand knowledge, absolute first-hand knowledge, that such students contribute greatly to the life of individual universities, but they contribute greatly to the knowledge and understanding that all New Zealanders gain from engaging with and seeing and being part of a community that is of many colours, characters, histories, faiths and beliefs. You gain from that. Building walls only hinders that. We need to tear down walls, not build them. As Chancellor, I said, I have first-hand knowledge of this. Our knowledge and skills cooperation has seen our ASEAN New Zealand scholarships increase from 178 to 225 per annum. And we get a huge number of applicants every year. We will look to increase that. Many want to come. We have 100 in-country English language training awards now in place in Cambodia, Laos, PDR, and Myanmar and Indonesia. English language training for officials. Awards have increased because we understand that's important as well. 120 new short-term training scholarships have been developed in our public sector leadership. Agriculture, renewable energy, all a part of the mix. We're also an agricultural trading nation. We depend on it. And our agricultural cooperation in ASEAN will focus on market demand for high quality and safe food, industry growth, and farmer returns from horticulture, from dairy, from beef, whatever they're into. So we are implementing a number of projects. Let me just touch on a few. Horticultural projects in Cambodia, Myanmar, and Vietnam. A safe agri-chemical use initiative will be delivered through the Safe Vegetables activity in Vietnam, and in time we move into Cambodia to support there. We're implementing dairy projects in Indonesia, Myanmar, and the Philippines. Support for agricultural, technical, vocational education and training focused on the beef and dairy industries, and veterinary training are near completion or under design. Importantly, a foot and mouth disease control initiative is underway in Laos PDR and will shortly be rolled out to Myanmar. I'm a farmer when I'm nothing else. I know we have to get on top of foot and mouth. So I'm delighted that other countries are working and substantially contributing to that program as well. We've also started a new initiative with the Mekong Institute focusing on strengthening food safety capability and training. We also prioritise humanitarian response to larger scale emergencies in the region. New Zealand, for example, New Zealand's support to Myanmar during the 2015 flash floods and landslides through the International Federation of Red Cross, which we often use as a vehicle to provide essential relief items, and to the World Food Programme to provide immediate food aid is just one such example. And unfortunately, you could say, these demands are always going to be there. We have to be prepared to respond. The issue of climate change, I've touched on it twice already. Let me spend just a moment. Must attract attention going forward. It's not something we can think about doing tomorrow. We have to think about doing it today. New Zealand is fortunate in that our early investments, because of early investments, mainly in hydropower, we get about 81% of our electricity from renewable resources. So we have a very clean electricity system. But it took considerable investment, and dare I say, political courage to do. While we are new to working in this area in the GMS, we have a resource of skills, management and policy reform we are more than willing to share. We also have a lot to learn from GMS in terms of shared prosperity, and we want to share your knowledge and experience with us. We do not see this as a one-way street. We also are here to learn and to benefit for our engagement and experience. New Zealand is a strong supporter of multilateral development organisations such as the Mekong Institute, because they offer opportunities to pool collective thinking and learn from each other. Investment in these organisations allows New Zealand to contribute to sustainable development outcomes with far greater reach than our resources on our own would achieve. Working together we can achieve more is a common theme of ours. Our partnership with development banks United Nations funds and agencies, Commonwealth agencies, humanitarian agencies, bring resources and expertise that increase the impact of our aid. Partnerships are central to our effectiveness. They increase our scale and reach, as well as multilateral development organisations. We want to work with a range of partners, including GMS governments, regional organisations, and private sector and non-government organisations as well. And they are a powerful influence for positive development. I hope that this has given you a sense of how New Zealand is actively supporting a common prosperity for the region. Building our links with the region has been a core focus of foreign policy since the 1970s, and now more than ever, the ASEAN region is front and centre in New Zealand's global interests. Our engagement in the region today is unrecognisable compared with 40 years ago. I said in some side remarks, they're not here, but I'll just throw them in, that at the end of World War II, New Zealand exported about 90% of its goods and services to Great Britain. Today, that market accounts for 3%. Such is the change and focus. And much of that new growth, of course, is in the greater Asian region. So our engagement today is unrecognisable compared to 40 years ago. Likewise, countries across the region have changed dramatically over the same period. Many have seen phenomenal growth and have transformed into economic powerhouses. And while significant regional security challenges remain, overall, the political and security environment is much more stable. I am pleased to note that New Zealand is more integrated into the region. Our political and economic relationships stand among our most important. ASEAN countries are among our largest trading partners, as I just mentioned. We have built defence and security links with a greater range of countries, including new as well as traditional partners such as Australia, the United States, in pursuit of a shared responsibility, this theme coming through, shared responsibility for common prosperity. And at home too, New Zealand now has a solid ASEAN identity. There are now over 550,000 people in New Zealand in a population of 4.5 million have an Asian identity. Very obvious when you visit New Zealand, the integration of New Zealand, a Southwest Pacific nation, with the nations of Asia. They are a vibrant and integral part of our community. Over 75% of all international visitors to New Zealand last year were from the Asia-Pacific region. That just reinforces links and understanding. Over 62% of all international students in New Zealand last year were from the region. The New Zealand government is strengthening its presence across ASEAN in recognition of the importance of ASEAN to our future and to manage increasingly large and diverse relationships with our Asian partners. We don't try to get one shot to fit all, we try to understand the partners we're working with. New Zealand's first dedicated ambassador to ASEAN was appointed in 2014, and last year we opened a New Zealand mission to ASEAN in Jakarta. We've also opened a New Zealand embassy in Myanmar. So let me just conclude this quite long story by returning to the theme of this forum, the role of development partners in the region. As I've outlined, New Zealand's approach is to support sustainable development in developing countries in order to reduce poverty and to contribute to a more secure, equitable, and sustainable world community. We all have an interest in reducing poverty. We know that despite our best efforts, it's only by working alongside others that we can have impact of sufficient scale to make a positive change. So let us acknowledge the strength and value we have all gained from Thailand and New Zealand's collective endeavours, the establishment 20 years ago of the Mekong Institute. A great moment. New Zealand, I want to assure you, ladies and gentlemen, looks forward to continuing our work together with Thailand and our friends in the GMS and in ASEAN. We're not planning to go anywhere. We want to continue to contribute. Thank you very much.